Hey, Brian Fauché here from Happy Amp and Empower Sound. I wanted to take a moment and just talk to you about sound in general. A few things that I've heard over the years when I get calls, and I thought that maybe I could dispel some myths about using a sound system and help you out as a wedding officiant. There's some things that you need to know, and hopefully what I'm going to tell you will prevent you from thinking the wrong things that maybe you've heard people say, because as a wedding officiant, using sound is different than being a singer or playing in a band. So first of all, there's a couple of terms that you should know. There's a dynamic mic, or there's a capacitor or condenser mic. Maybe you've heard of these before, maybe you haven't. But I hear people constantly ask me when they're calling looking for a PA system, and they'll say to me, just wanted to make sure that the microphone is a capacitor mic, or the microphone or is a condenser mic. Those two things are the same. So I just want to make sure that it's a condenser mic, isn't it? All right. Now here's what you need to know about that. Number one, a condenser mic is higher quality. To an extremely trained ear, or someone who is recording music or a musical instrument, then having a capacitor or a condenser mic is going to be very important. Well, I say very important. To some musicians, it's very important. It has a wider range. If you crash cymbals together in front of a capacitor mic, you're going to hear that properly. If you do it in front of a dynamic mic, it's too high. It's not going to really come through as a true rich sound. You'll still know their cymbals. You probably, and I, wouldn't necessarily know the difference and be able to tell which mic was used. But somebody with a really trained ear, if it's going on a professional, very high quality recording, they'd want the capacitor mic. It has a little bit more natural sound. But there are musicians, such as what I've heard is Phil Collins and Mick Jagger prefer dynamic mics. So now let's talk about a dynamic mic, what you're really going to find in your average PA system. And they have a little bit lesser of a range, but for a voice, it doesn't make a difference at all. As a matter of fact, a dynamic mic is much more resistant to moisture and more durable with drops and being put in and out of cases and carried around and, banged down on a table. So now which microphone do you want? Okay, so somebody someday may try to sell you a capacitor or a condenser mic explaining to you, oh, it's such better quality sound. And then it's not going to last you, because what they don't understand is you're going out and doing weddings on a beach with really moist air, or you're handing it to a drunk best man who's going to drop the microphone anyway. So a dynamic mic is the way to go. Now, do you have to worry about that? Do you have to write that down? No, because 99 times out of 100, a PA system that you're going to be purchasing for a reasonable amount of money is going to be a dynamic mic anyway. Chances are, if someone ever tries to do the sales pitch on you, they're going to be trying to sell you the capacitor or the condenser mic, okay? Now, I have people who have a lot of confusion about static versus feedback. Static is when you might be too far away from the PA system and you get a shh noise like that, or there's interference. That can cause static, okay? Feedback is when you're too close to your PA system and you get that high-pitched noise that your microphone is just too close to the speaker. That's feedback. So don't confuse the two, because if you call me or anyone to help you with a PA system and you say, can you explain to me why I'm getting this static, you're going to get 5 minutes of the wrong answer. So there's another term for you. UHF versus VHF. You're going to find PA systems and somebody's going to try to sell you one based on the fact that it's UHF, or based on the fact that it's VHF. Now the Happy Amp, the product that we sell, is VHF, but this is not a sales pitch. I'm just giving you information here. So UHF, a lot of people will try to pitch UHF as being better. They'll say you want to go with UHF or ultra high frequency because it's better. Well, UHF used to be better because was less used and VHF was getting crowded. Well, what happens to a restaurant that everyone starts saying is better? People start going there. And that's what happened with UHF. It got crowded. So now UHF and VHF, it's kind of a toss-up which one is going to be better. A system that has the ability to change the frequency is nice to have. We have a UHF Pro that does that. The Happy Amp doesn't. But it's not a necessity. It's pretty rare that you're going to run into a situation where you can't use a PA system because of the frequency. Bearing in mind a couple of important exceptions. If you're going to be writing something down because you're going to be buying a PA system, here's what to write down. Write down that you do not want to buy a PA system that is within the 698 to 806 megahertz frequency range, because those are now blocked out for emergency use only. You are not allowed to use that. If you're looking at a used system and they say to you that they don't know what frequency it's on, there's a very good chance, it's only going to be for UHF systems because those are UHF frequencies, there's going to be a very good chance that that is a UHF channel that it is on. So you want to avoid that because you're not allowed to use it and you will get interference from emergency vehicles, and they'll get interference from you as well. So that could be a problem. Most people don't know this next one, but somewhere in the low 600 band, which is also UHF, is going to be taken away by the government next year. So a lot of PA systems that are in that range of the low 600s, which is now legal, next year isn't going to be. So you want to stay away from, let's right now just call it 600 up to 650 megahertz. That's going to be an important range to avoid in buying a PA system. Okay? VHF, the Happy Amp is anywhere from 197 to 216 megahertz. It's within that range. That's open to use. It's short range. So you're not going to run into interference unless someone is in the same room using the same frequency. And that's pretty rare that that's going to happen. Because I'm not just saying that somebody's going to be on 212 megahertz and you're like, oh man, mine's on 212 and yours is on 212. You know, because we've only got from 197 up to 216, right? That's not how it works. There's decimal points. So if you're on 212, chances are you're going to be on 212.27. And they might be on 212.68. And it's not a problem. So there isn't just a small range of frequencies. Add 2 decimal points onto that and you've got a much larger range of frequencies that are short range, so you know it's not going to interfere. Ham radios, cell phones, and television broadcasts, those are all on different frequencies that aren't going to interfere with a PA system that you purchase new. Used ones, you never know because they've changed the ranges that were acceptable over time. This is another reason why it's important. There are many reasons why it's important not to spend a fortune on a PA system. What the government does with changing the ranges, that is one reason why not to spend a fortune on a PA system. So if you can get a good PA system for a couple $100, that might be a really good way to go. Going out and doing weddings outside, they might get rained on, things like that happening. You don't want to spend $1,000 on a PA system that you're going to be replacing next year. It's just not fair to you. So finding a PA system if you spend $50 on one, you're going to get garbage. I know how much the internal components cost. You're not going to be able to spend $50 and get a good PA system. It's going to be garbage components. So keep that in mind. Another thing, let's see what else we can tell you that's important. Oh, using a microphone. Now, as a wedding officiant, sometimes the look of the microphone can be an issue. You might not want to have the big black boom mic. We do have an option of a nice thin tan microphone, but those thin tan microphones that are practically invisible are also expensive. Countryman microphone, Countryman's a brand name that is used. They're about $400 for one of those tiny microphones. We do have OSP brand one that goes with our system that's $176. Sometimes people hear $176 for a microphone, they freak out. They're not seeing the competition. So that is a reasonable price. Personally, the black microphone, the boom coming down in front of your mouth, it doesn't bother me at all. As a wedding officiant, though, you might be concerned about pictures, because you're going to be in the pictures with the bride and groom, and then all of a sudden you've got a ShamWow, do you want fries with that microphone look in the pictures. Personally, I don't think that's a problem, because people are used to seeing a microphone. You wouldn't think it was a problem to be holding a microphone in front of your mouth, so why would it be a problem that there's a microphone coming down in front of your mouth like this? But it's just a matter of your preference. If you're doing high-end weddings, then, the $176 or so investment is worth it to get a microphone that is smaller and thin and tan and blends into your face. Lapel mics, you can generally just try to stay away from. You could spend $300, $400, $500 on a lapel mic and still get feedback, because a headset mic is going to be right here, right in front of your mouth. A lapel mic is going to be all the way down here on your shirt, and this distance from where the voice is coming out to the lapel mic down here means that you have to have the gain turned up. The gain is basically, in layman's terms, the distance from the microphone that sound will be received. So if the microphone is here on your shirt and the gain is low, this is the distance it'll pick up from. And then as you turn up the gain, the distance gets wider, so you have to make the distance large, so the gain high, so that it'll pick up the sound from your mouth, which also means that it's going to pick up the sound coming out of the speaker, and that's what causes feedback. So lapel mics are difficult. If you're using a lapel, you're going to want to put your speaker 6 or 8 feet away from you, facing out towards the audience, and you should not see the grill of that speaker at all. No matter where you move, you want to make sure you don't see that grill. I describe sound as, imagine an explosion of bouncy balls coming out of the front of the speaker. What you want to make sure doesn't happen is you don't get hit by any of them. So if an explosion of bouncy balls were to come flying out of that speaker and they bounce off of a solid wall and come and hit you, that's a problem. Okay, so you want to make sure those solid walls are far enough away that those bouncy balls aren't going to make it back to you. If you can picture that silly image of that happening, coming out of the front of your speaker, and none of them hit you, then you know that your lapel mic is probably going to work just fine as long as you set the gain properly. Some systems have an external gain, some don't. External gain means on the transmitter itself. The transmitter is the device that you wear on your waist that your microphone runs down into, where the battery is kept. The gain may be a knob on the outside of the transmitter. That's really nice to have. The Happy Amp does have that. Our UHF Pro doesn't. So, and the UHF Pro is the higher end model. So it just depends, but I really like to have that gain on the outside. That is something to consider as you're looking at different PA systems, whether there is a gain available, because if all of a sudden you get feedback because somebody decides to get up and turn your speaker, these things happen. People just in the middle of the wedding get up and go, I'm going to turn the speaker a little bit. What in the world are they thinking? But anyway, you'll think of me when that happens. You want to be able to reach down and turn down your gain, because the alternative is going, excuse me, moron, please turn that back. So turning down the gain a little bit is, a nicer thing to do, because chances are it's going to be the father of the bride, and you're not going to get paid. Okay, so why to use a microphone? Because I hear all the time wedding officiants say, I don't need a microphone. Yes, you do. And maybe some other people can reinforce this for me. Yes, you do. You need a microphone, because there's going to be a fountain running in the back of the room. And for whatever reason, Aunt Gertrude, who's 93, sits in the back and then complains that she can't hear. You need amplification. Not only do you need amplification just to be louder, you need amplification to be able to accentuate nuances in your voice. You don't want to have to scream. Okay, it turns into The Princess Bride all of a sudden if you turn, "Marriage is what brings us here today." I mean, like you're screaming in their faces because they're right there. This is a romantic ceremony. You want to be able to turn it down a little bit on your own voice. You want to be able to whisper and have the people in the back hear you. Because when you say something soft and sweet to someone, everyone should be able to hear that. You lose those nuances when you don't have a microphone. Please consider that, and consider the fact that the people in the back can't hear you, and they're the ones that are going to get frustrated, and they're going to start to talk. And when they start to talk because they can't hear you, then the people in front of them can't hear, and before you know it, it spreads and spreads. Okay? Also, there is such a thing as teacher's nodules or vocal nodules. That is what happens to your voice when you project your voice too much, too often, and you're trying to speak too loud, and you can end up with surgery or worse from vocal nodules. I have people who call me and all of a sudden now they need a PA system because they just got out of surgery from having vocal nodules removed. It's not pleasant, so you don't want to constantly be yelling, okay? And you don't want to lose the attention of the people in the back. There's a lot of reasons that you really do need to have a microphone. You need a good system, and you want a system that's got a battery that's going to last you at least a few hours. A battery that you can change out yourself is really important, because if you're going to be doing weddings all day, you might want to own 2 or 3 of those batteries if it only lasts a few hours. I mean, spending a ton of money on a system with a really heavy battery that's going to last 10 hours is not necessary if you can just have 3 of them that last a few hours each and are much smaller and much lighter weight. So keep that in mind. You want to have one that has a battery and can also run on a cord, so you can plug it into the wall if you need to. Don't be stuck with a system that'll only work on battery and your battery's dead and there's an outlet right next to you that you can't use. That's ridiculous, but those systems are on the market. What makes it good? That battery is very important, being able to work on the cord. You want one that's loud, okay, but you want one also that comes across as your true natural voice, not tinny. Now, tinny has a lot to do with settings. So you can turn up gain, you can turn down gain, you can turn up the volume, turn down the volume, and you can make a system sound tinny. I had a competitor that was doing that with my system. He would set it on his booth and say, "Really, is this what you want?" He had the gain turned way up and the volume turned way down. He was able to make it sound tinny, and people go, "Oh, that's a happy amp, that sounds terrible." Okay? But you can do that, but that's not the case. So you set it right, and you can make a PA system sound good or bad, but there are lower quality systems that do sound tinny. In general, the smaller the size of the speaker, the tinnier the sound is going to be. So tinier is tinnier. But you don't need to be lugging 8-inch speakers with this huge system out onto the beach in order to do weddings, when you can have a system that is this big, that works. Yes, I'm intentionally not pulling out my systems and showing them to you on this video, and my microphones and stuff, because I just want this to be informative and not a sales pitch for my products. So you want it to be reliable. So that comes from reviews and asking friends, see what they use, what they recommend as being the product to use for you. Don't take reviews that are from a band that says, "This is fantastic, this is the best system you want to use." You want to talk to wedding officiants because they do the same thing that you do. You also, entertainers do very similar to what you do. So, you know, they're going to be traveling around just like you do. They're going to be doing outdoor venues just like you do. They're going to be in the sun, they're going to be in the wind, they're going to be in the rain, all those things that you sometimes deal with. So entertainers' recommendations, I typically tend to think that you guys are, you know, similar for that purpose. Like I said about it not being expensive, you don't want to spend $1,000 because you don't know. You might be replacing it next year if something happens to it, okay? Something that's easy to use. A good warranty is fantastic too. We have, I'm sorry, sales pitch time, but we have an unlimited warranty, $3.25 a month on the Happy Amp, and you are covered for everything except for theft and loss. Everything. There's no fine print. Everything. When the hurricane hit New Jersey, I had a customer who had their PA system in their basement, and it was flooded, and they said, "Is it covered?" I said, "Yes, it's covered. Acts of God are covered." Okay, electrical, electrocution of the system, if it was plugged in during a storm, it's covered. If you got caught in the rain, it's covered. Wear and tear over time, 3 years from now, and maybe it just doesn't sound like it used to. It's covered. We're going to send you a new one. Okay, sales pitch over. You want it to be durable. If you drop it on the ground, you don't want to have to be buying a new system. So you want one that is durable. That's going to come from recommendations. You can't take my word or anyone else's word for whether it's durable or not. Everyone's going to say their PA system is durable. I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to say to you. We could talk another time about using music, because there's inputs that you can input music. And there's some systems that will allow you to put the music right into the transmitter. Remember that transmitter that goes on your waist? Well, there's systems that have dual channels, like the Happy Amp, that has 2 belt pack transmitters that can work at the same time. One could be for your voice. The other one you could have an MP3 player plugged into. That way somebody could run the music right from that transmitter and not be off the side of the stage standing next to the PA system pressing play on an MP3 player that's plugged right into the PA system. So that's something to keep in mind too. Okay, well, I hope that this is informative for you, and I hope that you will find yourselves a good PA system, and it will do you a lot of good, and everyone that enjoys your service at their wedding. Have a great day.